A little bit of breaking news here on any given Thursday. Harrison Graham and Chase Sr. Bronco Mendenhall, the head coach of Virginia, has stepped down. He will resign, and it kind of sounds like retire. He is not pursuing another coaching opportunity. I don't want to speculate what's going on there, Chase, but more importantly, hey, another Power 5 job has opened up, so this is what we do. We break down potential candidates for those jobs, and this one being Virginia. But first, one-word reaction to Virginia's head coach resigning just after a pretty decent year.
Yeah.
Bizarre, strange. I don't really know what to make of this. Mendenhall's only 56 years old.
Unexpected.
It's not like he is unavailable to keep coaching. We don't know what's going on in his personal life. If certainly if there's any family situation, our thoughts out to him. But a very bizarre situation. Get your one-word reaction in on this one. And before we get to some candidates here, Chase, interesting situation. So Mendenhall left BYU for Virginia, and at the time it was like, that's kind of a downgrade for him because Virginia was in a bad way.
It's only a better conference. That was really it.
But he kind of brought him back. Like their quarterback this year, I was telling you about him, played really well.
Yep.
They won 6, 7, 8 games. They lost to Virginia Tech, their rival, over the last weekend. But kind of weird for their head coach to just step down like this.
Yeah, and he said, quote, "I would love to say there's been this buildup and a long amount of epiphanies and thought, but clearly this week there was a sense of clarity to me that I needed to step back from college football and reassess, renew, reframe, and reinvent with my wife as a partner our future and the next chapter of our lives. I was requested to stay by our athletic director. I was requested to stay by our president. It was my decision only."
And I will say this, if you're not all in as a college football coach, you can't do this job because it's 2 full-time jobs.
Especially now with the early recruiting window, it's really a 365-day-a-year job.
And it's about 18 hours a day. Like you have to
It ain't no
recruit,
joke.
you have to coach. So kudos to him for recognizing that he could not do it anymore. But you got to press on if you're Virginia. You got to get a head coach. So here's 10 candidates to replace Mendenhall. How about Tony Elliott, the offensive coordinator of Clemson? Now, his name, Chase, a lot hotter prior to this year. That Clemson offense really struggled. Is that a personnel problem? Is that a play calling problem? TCU interviewed him for their opening, but they focused on Sonny Dykes. I mean, conference affiliation makes sense. Could this be an opportunity for him?
Yeah, it could be. I'm a little bit concerned about Tony Elliott because everybody's going to say, oh, Trevor Lawrence, #1 pick, generational prospect, best one since Andrew Luck. He regressed while he was at Clemson, and DJ hasn't improved. In fact, he got worse this year. At one point, he was outright benched. Does that have to do with Tony Elliott? I'm not sure. Could be varying circumstances, but I'd probably be out on Tony Elliott. I want to see more from him.
I will say Clemson's offensive line this year, probably the worst they've had in the Dabo Swinney era. Dan Lanning, the defensive coordinator at Georgia, he's been a name that has surfaced in this coaching cycle. If I'm him, I'm probably hanging out at Georgia trying to wait for a better job to open up.
Yeah.
And the thing about him as well is while he's done a lot for that Georgia defense, it's still Kirby Smart's defense.
Yeah.
So I think there's questions is how much is he doing? Like, is how much impact does he have? Certainly some, but I would probably go in a different direction if I was Virginia.
I would too. And with Virginia, it's middle tier ACC at best. They went 6-6 this year. You're not going to get a long-time proven elite coach, obviously, like some of the premier programs out there. Dan Lanning doesn't have that much experience for me to be excited about it because he doesn't call the plays for Georgia, but certainly intriguing name with how that Georgia defense has looked.
If you're Virginia, you want to be Kentucky.
Yeah.
You want to be what Kentucky has been with Mark Stoops. Go to a bowl game consistently, and every 4 or 5 years you're winning 9 or 10 games.
Yeah.
That should be what you're shooting for if you are Virginia. Who should be the next head coach at Virginia? This will be the pinned comment on this video, by the way. So if you get hit with the YouTube ad break, scroll on down, get your votes in. Who should take over for UVA? How about Josh Gattis? And I actually like this idea quite a bit. I think regionally it could make some sense. This is a guy who was potentially on the hot seat coming into this year, but he's shown he can adapt, Chase. He's a guy that was on Alabama's coaching staff a few years ago where they were spreading it out. You know, his famous term when he took the Michigan job, speed and space, speed and space. Well, he realized that wasn't Michigan's personnel, and they went all in on, physicality, running the football. Now, did Jim Harbaugh have some weighing in on that?
Say?
Probably probably, but I think Gattis deserves some credit with what this offense has been able to do this year.
No, I agree. And Josh Gattis has experience calling plays, which I really like. And you kind of alluded to it. Spread concepts at first there for a little while. Then they identified the personnel, and they're like, doesn't really make sense to do this. We have a multiple offense. Also last week, and one of my favorite qualities in a coach and a coaching candidate, the ability to adjust on the fly and adjust in game. He did that against Ohio State. He realized, okay, they're playing with some safeties back. We're going to run the football right down their throats. I really like what I've seen from Josh Gattis this year.
How about Tom Herman? Now, apparently, and that you guys will find this funny, someone reached out to him, and this is like a loose report, by the way, so this isn't like Bruce Feldman saying this. Apparently, he told someone he likes the NFL better than college. I don't know what his thinking is, like maybe to be an NFL offensive coordinator.
Quarterback coach, OC maybe?
I guess he's serving as the Bears as an analyst right now for their offensive staff. Obviously, was the head coach at Texas, flamed out there. Did go 32-18 there, but the biggest issue with Tom Herman was lack of leadership traits. Players did not like him, and that's a red flag for me, especially at a program like Virginia. You need a guy that can get in there and connect with players. I don't know if Tom Herman's that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. A lot of cultural concerns while he was at Texas. I love what he did at Houston. Yeah. They were winning 10-plus games back-to-back seasons, if I stand to be corrected.
Yep.
And his job working with offenses and quarterbacks at Ohio State was impressive as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Is Virginia a top half job in the ACC? T for top, B for bottom. Honestly, historically, it's bottom half.
It's bottom half.
Now, Mendenhall did a good job of getting them to be better and getting, some offensive talent there, but you're talking middle pack in the ACC, so get your votes in on that front. How about Bill O'Brien? There was some chatter that he was in the mix for the Virginia Tech job, Chase. Could make some sense. I don't love Bill O'Brien. I think this Bama offense is, sputtered at times this year despite being very talented, but I thought he did an admirable job when he kind of saved Penn State after the whole Joe Paterno, Jerry Sandusky situation.
Yeah, no, he was the guy who took over right after that situation, and really it was an impossible job to inherit, and he still did a really good job. I mean, he was still able to recruit when recruits knew that they weren't going to be bowl eligible, and of course a scandal like that in a community like that in Happy Valley State College, Pennsylvania, isn't easy to deal with. And at the NFL level, he won a lot of games, man. It's just when he got personnel control, that's when the Texans really started to struggle, and the DeAndre Hopkins trade, one of the worst of all time. He won't have those duties as a college coach, though. I actually like him on this list.
How about this one? And I recommended this to our staff behind the scenes who helped us build this this segment here. How about Gary Patterson?
Yeah, your boy.
I feel like TCU and Virginia have some similarities as universities, academically as well as athletics. Now, TCU football certainly has done better than Virginia football, but I think this is the type of job that Patterson could take on and do pretty well. Like, Mendenhall's gotten them to a decent place.
Yep.
Patterson can plug and play, right? Mendenhall probably surprised them by stepping down here. This is not a crazy high-pressure job for Patterson, and if he wants to be a head coach right away, this is probably the caliber job you're talking about at this point in his career. I think it could be pretty interesting here.
I think the whole rebuilding process and taking on a challenge is something that intrigued Gary Patterson back in the day with TCU.
And he did it
It'd be the same situation with Virginia. And if he's able to replicate what he did at TCU with Virginia, very, very interesting and intriguing for him as he looks for a new challenge in his coaching career, as long as he's not burnt out. Because if you burn out, you can't be a coach in college football. Shout out to today's sponsor, Fanatics, for making today's show possible. Coming up, we're going to continue to break down this list of the top 10 candidates to take over for Virginia football. But first, 50% off college football hoodies, and a lot of these hoodies available right now if you go to chatsports.com/CFB hoodie. These deals, absolutely outrageous, all in a good way. You want to rock your colors, support your university, your alma mater, or the squad that you root on, we can get you hooked up thanks to our friends at Fanatics, only if you go to chatsports.com/CFB hoodie. If you want that 50% deal to apply, you have to use that link down below. All of these hoodies, pullover, zip-ups for a lot of these colleges available right now. Just use that link down below.
All right, at number 4, Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator at Georgia. Tom, this is the Monken who was with the Browns, right? So he's been linked to head coaching gigs both in the NFL and college for a long time now. Hasn't quite gotten one. Georgia's offense isn't super exciting, but it's very effective. It's very efficient. I don't hate this. I don't hate this idea at all. He's a guy with a ton of experience both in the NFL and in college.
Yeah, and I like the multiple offense that Georgia's been trotting out there as well. And Stetson Bennett, that development has been
really
pretty crazy. I'm also intrigued by number 3 on our list, Harrison,
Yeah.
Dan Mullen. I'm not sure if he's done with the college game, if he's a little bit worn out, but I think that he could have a lot of success at Virginia and kind of deal with that situation a little bit better than Florida because there's so much less pressure.
Virginia now is kind of where Mississippi State was when he took that job, where it's like they haven't won at a biggish level in a long time. Dan Mullen is much better suited in a non-blue blood situation. I mean, that's just been proven. He got Mississippi State to the #1 team in the country at one point with Dak Prescott. That is just unheard of with what he did with that program. Obviously, things flamed out quickly at Florida, but I think at Virginia, it's intriguing. Now you hear this chatter. He doesn't like recruiting. He's lazy on that side of things. That's not ideal, but if you can get some good assistant coaches, we know he can run an offense.
Develop quarterbacks.
That is
Alex
proven.
Smith, Dak Prescott, Kyle Trask. He's done a great job. Tim Tebow back in the day.
And a lot of those under-recruited type of quarterbacks, he identifies them, brings them in there. So I think that's a name to keep an eye on as well. What type of coach should Virginia hire? O for offense, D for defense. Typically, I'm voting offense in modern college football, but I think if you're Virginia, just get the best name you can. And maybe that's Jamey Chadwell. Regionally, this makes a ton of sense.
Regionally, it does, yeah.
Look, Coastal Carolina didn't have a college football program like 15 years ago. And he's won, I think he's gone like 23-2 the past 2 years or something like that at Coastal. It's been impressive. He would bring an exciting offense to the table right away. If you can get a young guy like this to take this job, that's what I would do if I was Virginia.
And if you're Virginia, you can't be scared of the possibility that in 3 to 5 years, Jamey Chadwell leaves. What you have to focus in on is the next 3 to 5 years, and how do you maximize this current window? And for Jamey Chadwell, I think this makes the most sense for him. Sometimes when coaches go from a Coastal Carolina to, let's say, in Oklahoma, it is far too much of a steep step upward where they can't really deal with it. Whereas Jamey Chadwell going from Coastal Carolina to Virginia, he's familiar with the region. He's familiar with the recruiting. He's familiar with all of the high schools in that area, and the pressure isn't as great as some of those other programs.
Now, before you guys laugh or chuckle or whatever at number 1, Charles Huff, the head coach at Marshall, he was the associate head coach at Alabama. Really good recruiter, young guy, lots of energy. People were surprised when he took the Marshall job. They were like, man, you're taking the Marshall gig? You could wait a couple years and get a better job. So, also a good note from Tom Downey, played at Hampton, a small school in the Virginia area. Or in Virginia, I should say. So there's that regional connection as well. Kind of fits the Chadwell bill, right? Young, energetic, could get you some real fresh energy. And again, it could be a guy that leaves in 3 or 4 years for a better job. But if you can get 3 or 4 really good years out of it, I always say this about smaller, lesser tier programs. If your coaches are leaving for other jobs, that means you're winning. That's what you want if you're Virginia, if you are some of these other teams. So that's definitely a name to keep in mind as well. So there's our top 10 candidates to replace Bronco Mendenhall at Virginia. One more time we'll ask you, who should be the next head coach for the Cavaliers? Get your votes in right now.